May I have your attention, please? May I request the worthy participant and the guests, you may like to take your seats, please. And please ensure your mobiles are either silent or these are on the or switch off.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम।
शुरू अल्लाह का नाम लेकर जो बड़ा मेहरबान निहायत रहम वाला है।
इन्ना अअतैनाकल कौसर।
ए नबी सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम, हमने तुमको कौसर यानी बहुत ज्यादा भलाई अता फरमाई है।
फसल्लि लिरब्बिक वन्हर।
तो अपने परवरदिगार के लिए नमाज पढ़ा करो और कुर्बानी किया करो।
इन्न शानिअक हुवल अबतर।
कुछ शक नहीं कि तुम्हारा दुश्मन ही बेनाम रहेगा।
Honorable guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good morning. On behalf of the Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad, I welcome you all to the book launch titled Tormented Truth 1971 and Beyond, authored by Group Captain Retired S.M. Hali, Sitara Imtiaz Military. Ladies and gentlemen, the chief guest for today's event is General Ehsanul Haq, Nishane Imtiaz Military, former Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee. We are thankful to him for gracing the occasion with his presence. In order to start the formal proceedings of the event, I request Dr. Saifur Rahman Malik, Tamka Imtiaz, Director, India Studies Center, for his introductory remarks.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. General Ehsanul Haq, Nishane Imtiaz Military, former Chairman, Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee. Ambassador Izaz Ahmed Chaudhry, Director General Institute of Strategic Studies Islamabad. Air Vice Marshal Retired Zubair Alam, Hilale Imtiaz Military. Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhry, Group Captain Retired S.M. Hali, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. Today's event is very unique in nature. It is the Day of Sargodians. The author, not only the author, but so many dignitaries are the proud alumni of that prestigious institution. The second unique aspect of today's event is my personal bondage and association with dignitaries sitting around. I will not be miser to mention. During mid-2000, having served under the able command of General Ehsan, it was not less than a treat. I have learned from him how to stay cool, calm, cheerful, and with smiling outlook, though fire around. I will also mention Air Chief Marshal Suhail Aman. Unfortunately, due to last night, his health was not well. He communicated his salam and compliment to all of you. Again, year 2010, developed bondage with him. While my presence in National Defense University through National Security Workshop, that day and onward, he is always very kind and forthcoming. तो मैंने उनसे आज ही इनकिसारी क्या होती है ये मैंने सुहेल अमान से सीखा. फिर उसके बाद ऑन ए वेरी शॉर्ट नोटिस ACM सुहेल अमान ने ही हमारे इंस्टीट्यूशन का इनाग्रेशन की थी लास्ट ईयर. और उसके साथ साथ हमारे एक इम्पॉर्टेंट स्पीकर हैं सेनेटर जावेद जब्बार, वीडियो लिंक पे ज्वाइन करेंगे. I enjoyed a unique mentoring from him while my last posting in GHQ, while undergoing with the task of Project Pakistaniyat for Army Public Schools. Last but not the least, I must mention about the author of the book, the hero of the day. What a coincidence, today he is having the wedding anniversary. Sir, on behalf of staff, and research faculty of Institute of Strategic Studies, we extend our best wishes and happy anniversary to you. Ladies and gentlemen, India Study Center, it was established in 2022, February last year. And the prime focus of the institution is to carry out research on multiple aspects of India, internal side and external side. Also to prepare the policy input for the policy making institution. Along with that, having number of events in multiple formats. I am very proud to say, under the able leadership of Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry, in a short span of time, we have conducted 16 different events, national and international nature. Sir, we not only go for public talks and other activities, it is the policy of the institute to promote scholarship and generation of new knowledge. We already have inaugurated, we have launched 2 books from this podium, and today is the 3rd one. So I am sure with the presence of such dignitaries, we'll be learning a lot about this book and other things as well. तो मुझे ये कहने में खुशी है, हाली साहब की जो वजह शोहरत सिर्फ 12 किताबें ही नहीं हैं, जो कौमी तराना उन्होंने लिखा, जो हम आम पाकिस्तानियों के दिलों में है, शहीद की जो मौत है वो कौम की हयात है, लहू जो है शहीद का वो कौम की ज़कात है. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your patient hearing.
I would like to request Director General, Institute of Strategic Studies, Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhry, for his welcome remarks. The welcome remarks will be followed by a short video about the book.
Thank you, Mavish. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What a delight it is for the Institute and a privilege to host so many illustrious Sargodians. I think this is the largest ever gathering of Sargodians in this institute. And what a delight also that the author whose book we are launching today is a Sargodian, and the chief guest who will be speaking and sharing his thoughts is also a Sargodian. And the gentleman who is talking to you is also a proud Sargodian. And Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhry too, he will be speaking. And there are quite a few, and I was so pleasantly surprised to see Kanan Nazar there from first entry, because I met him in the US in our reunion. Well, the topic, and welcome to also the High Commissioner of Bangladesh. So thank you very much for making it convenient today. This subject hasn't really been written so much, but everyone in Pakistan has been affected by it one way or the other. I was a teenager when 1971 occurred, and I was in 8th grade, had just gone to PAF College Sargodha, and around November, the clouds of war were really hanging over the scenario, and we were sent to PAF base Sargodha to fill the heavy sandbags. That's what pre-cadets could do at that time. And we could figure out that something is not good. And then we were sent home, and I remember that when 16th of December happened, I saw my elders, my father, my uncles, weeping and crying actually, like babies. And we were really moved. And I still, that image has etched into my memory. So I have reflected upon it in my book also. What happened? Who was responsible for such a big tragedy? There are different thoughts which have been expressed. General Yahya, who was at the helm of affairs at that time, and made the fatal mistake of launching the military action on the night between 25th and 26th March, does share the responsibility. Mr. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who did not allow the National Assembly session to take place in Dhaka and hand over power to the majority leader, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, who had won the elections. Then Sheikh Mujib himself, who made those 6 points and then pushed the envelope to the point that he even created or allowed the creation of Mukti Bahani and solicited or sought the support of India. And then finally, Indian government itself, which found an opportunity to dismember Pakistan. So it's a sordid affair. It's a tormented, as the word says, it's a tormented history, but not enough has been written, and that's my worry. What happened because of that? When there was a gap, with due deference to the High Commissioner, pardon my saying, but I think the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina saw an opportunity to use some of the facts in a manner that would give her a political leverage. And one instance that came to haunt the people of Pakistan was when the trials of Jamaat Islami leaders started happening between 2013 and 2016, on the ground that they were supporting the Pakistani forces at that time. And much of those trials were flawed because international human rights organizations, Amnesty International, they all felt that enough legal scrutiny was not there. Pakistan also protested. But then Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina took it a notch higher and went to UN Security Council in 2 successive years and alleged that Pakistan Army had killed 3 million people and raped 200,000 women. Now, I started, when I was researching for my own book, I started digging into it, and increasingly I found that these facts were not correct. Not only Sharmila Bose and Uppsala University, but many others have exposed this myth. And now Group Captain S.M. Hali has also done the same. I think his last part is what are the myths, and one of the myths are these figures. So what you need is more honest scholarship. I know that there is still a strong sentiment of love for the people of East Pakistan, in West Pakistan, in Pakistan, today's Pakistan. And I also know from those of us who had served in Dhaka that a good sentiment exists who regret what happened in 1971, and they would like to, see if, all right, we now are 2 different independent sovereign countries, but they would still like to see the people-to-people context. And Sargodians have played their part. I know that some of the Sargodians organized, and Sargodians from Bangladesh came. Bangladesh is a reality. We should respect that. We should honor it as a country. But I know that the people of Pakistan and people of Bangladesh share far too much to be left on the side. And thank you very much. I'm very, very pleased that S.M. Hali has made yet another effort to bring facts to life. And I hope all of us can learn from him. He's authored 12 books, and I do hope that we all learn from him. I'm also grateful to General Ehsanul Haq. Every time we make a request to him, he does not decline. That's his graciousness, and he's my senior, and he's very, very kind and affectionate to this institute. Thank you so much. God bless you all. God bless Pakistan.
कुछ गिले शिकवे भी कर लेते मुनाजातों के बाद हम के ठहरे अजनबी बहुत बेदर्द लम्हे हाथ में दर्द इश्क के थे बहुत बेदर्द लम्हे हाथ में दर्द इश्क के थी बहुत बेमेहर सुबहें थी बहुत बेमेहर सुबहें मेहरबान रातों के बाद हम के ठहरे अजनबी उनसे जो कहने गए थे फैज़ जां सदका किए अनकही ही रह गई वो बात सब बातों के बाद हम के ठहरे अजनबी इतनी मदादातों के बाद हम के ठहरे अजनबी
Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book is Group Captain S.M. Hali, who is a veteran of the Pakistan Air Force. After retiring from the service, he took up media as a profession and completed his master's and MPhil in mass communication along with broadcast journalism from USA. Group Captain Hali has authored 12 books on current affairs. He is also a recipient of Sitara Imtiaz Military. May I now invite Group Captain Hali to share his views and experiences about his book.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim and Assalamu alaikum. I'm indebted, first of all, to Almighty Allah for having given me the strength and the opportunity to touch upon a subject which Ambassador Azaz just pointed out is very close to the hearts of the people of this subcontinent, some positively, some negatively. I will leave it to the readers of my book to decide, but the title tells it all. From my point of view and my research, it is the truth, albeit so tormented. I must pay my respects to Senator Javed Jabbar. He was unable to come here today because he is out doing charity work in Khairpur, but he was kind enough to send his review by a video link, which you will be sharing very soon. Javed Jabbar Sahab guided me. In fact, it has been sunk in that I have written 12 books, but after writing my 11 books, the 12th one, I sent the manuscript to him, and he pointed out to me that you've done a good effort, but what you need is a professional editor. And it hit me hard. I used to take pride in my English and my writing, but he was right. And he even pointed out that I should send it to Ardashir Kawasji Institute in Karachi. They took a couple of months, but they did a great job. But for this idea. And he also pointed out that every good book has an index. And I didn't know how to make an index. My son, Ghazali, who is a software engineer, some of you may have heard of the Easy Pesa program. He is one of the architects of that. But he was sitting in Sydney in the COVID-19. But from there, he guided me how to create an index of a book so that researchers and readers may be able to refer to the book with ease. General Ahsanul Haq, he's my mentor, my senior from public school, Sargodha. I remember him because I was still in school when he was in the final year, an outstanding student. And he's always remained a role model, and he's always remained a father figure later on for Sargodians, especially when they ventured on many great events, which I'll talk about very shortly. Of course, Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry, for your kind words, for also offering the auspices of the Institute of Strategic Studies to once again launch one of my books. Thank you. And all your staff, by the way, they have been a great help, and they all deserve my thanks. Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhry, I chose him not because he's a Sargodian, but you should know that he is a Bengali who opted for Pakistan, has served it with dignity, rose to the rank of ambassador, and now even continues to use his energy and knowledge for charity programs, for think tanks, and so on. And that is the reason why he is here today. Air Vice Marshal Zubair, first of all, condolences. He recently lost his wife in COVID. He himself suffered from COVID, was very weak. He was one of my first, not exactly first, but one of my officers commanding, but we were colleagues in the Transport Conversion School as instructors. We have maintained a very close friendship. But the reason why I requested him, and he was reluctant because his health is not very good, he is weak, because he participated in the Operation Searchlight. He was there flying the C-130s, daring missions, day in, day out. And those of you who are aware of the operation know, I can see Air Commodore Gul, who fought the war from there, the air battles. But the C-130s, they remain an unsung hero, but he was flying one of those for 6 months. They were the backbone in daring operations of carrying out classic operations which you only read about in books, but they conducted them of assault and landing, and at one stage, the C-130, by the way, those of you who do not know, has a capacity of 96 passengers. One day they picked up 365 because they had to be transported. Thank you, sir, for being here. AVM Zubair, sir. I must thank Dr. Saif not only for his kind remarks. He's a colleague, he's a friend, but he has been instrumental in making this event possible. I am indebted to my fellow Sargodians. I see you have turned up in great numbers to show solidarity with me, and it means a lot to me. But I must acknowledge one honorary Sargodian, Shabbir, and we call him Angel. Could you please stand up, sir? Shabbir Saab, please stand up. Why I am saying and honoring him, his son, Flight Lieutenant Rashid, a Mirage pilot, sacrificed his life because his aircraft developed a problem. It would have crashed into the city of Karachi, killing thousands, if not more. But he delayed his ejection, and in the bargain, he saved the city of Karachi but sacrificed his life. Shabbir Saab did not enter into a life of mourning or being morose, but he picked up the cudgel to establish a place near Tandu Alayar Khan, named it after his son Rashidabad, and there he has set up a state-of-the-art facility for the poor people of the world. And when the Sargodians decided to pay back to society what the society has given us, made us what we are, to establish a school on the lines of PF Public Sargoda, but for civilians for whom it will not be compulsory to join the armed forces, but for those people who come from downtrodden areas but cannot afford good education, to be educated over there, Shabir Saab offered us land over there, and our first school is up and running for the last 6 years now, sir? And the 8 years. 1-5. My memory is failing me. I was one of the pioneers working along with the likes of Air Chief Marshal Farooq Feroz Khan, and sitting over here in the front row, who is the chief guest, General Ahsanullah, who, as in his various capacities, helped us out to gather funds, and we established that school. It's up and running, and also we have plans. The school at Swabi is nearly ready, and many more in downtrodden areas of Pakistan will come up, because that was the aim of the Sargodian Spirit Trust, to give back to society what society gave us. I'll be failing in my duty if I do not acknowledge the Army Institute of Military History, which has done human service, which is continuing to do human service. I see Brigadier Nasir over here, who is not only trying to make sure that the history or the books written on 1971 are distributed and placed properly, but he's trying to help relocate the Biharis who still remained stranded in Bangladesh. And I'm glad that the government of Bangladesh has decided to give the citizenship to those Biharis who were born after 1971, but the ones earlier, they still live under terrible conditions in ghettos and camps, and the AIMH is trying to establish them. On top of it, some of the Biharis who settled in Pakistan, including my younger brother, by the way, who is a graduate from the USA, and he's a colleague of Imtiaz Rastgar Sahab, who's sitting here, was recently, his Nadra card, when he sent it for renewal, was refused because it said place of birth, Dhaka, Bangladesh. They said, you are a Bengali, you cannot be a citizen of Pakistan. Now this is an anomaly which we have to sort out, and I'm glad that the AMIH has taken up the case and is doing something for it. You are, I'm sure. And of course, I'll be failing if I do not acknowledge my better half, Annie Hali. She is the wind beneath my wings. We have been married for 43 years. It's a coincidence. Not only has she borne me when I was in the Air Force, the wrong hours that we had, but most importantly, she is not only a critic of my books, she guides me at every step and applies course correction, holds me back when she thinks I'm overstepping, and so on. Thank you, Mrs. Ali. I see over here a number of people who were affected by the 1971 war. My wife's Bhabi is here. She's the daughter of an army major, Major Athar Ansari, who was posted in Dinajpur. His entire unit was wiped out by the Mukti Bahini. She was 14 years old then. And they escaped through the night, hiding in ditches, and walked, she and her two other siblings who were younger than her and their mother, and they managed to reach Dhaka, the safety. It was a miracle how they were saved. My wife's brother, Major Vedat Fatmi, was a prisoner of war, and later on, much later, he married the Bhabi. Welcome. Now let me tell you a little about why I wrote this book. Of course, there are compelling reasons. In 2005, the Sargodian Old Boys Association of Bangladesh invited the Sargodian Old Boys Association of Pakistan to visit them. And when we went there, we were met with so much love, with so much affection, that it was unbelievable. It seemed as if the scars of the 1971 have been washed off. Nobody mentioned this separation, but we could feel that that bond, that amity still is there. But perhaps that was our generation. In 2012, I was invited to Kunming with a group of journalists to represent Pakistan at the Asian Trade Expo. And on the very first day, while I was having my lunch, I heard a group of young Bengali journalists sitting on a table who were discussing, and my ears pricked up when I heard the word Pakistan and Quaid-e-Azam. I was born in Dhaka. My parents insisted that I learn the Bengali language and assimilate the Bengali culture. So when I heard their conversation, I approached them. I introduced myself as a Pakistani, but I spoke to them in Bengali. And then I asked them, whatever you are saying about Quaid-e-Azam, about Pakistan, and about what the ambassador just mentioned, the myth of the 3 million genocide carried out by Pakistan Army, I was shocked because they told me that this has now been included, and they were youngsters, in our syllabus. We are told that the Quaid-e-Azam did an injustice to us by installing the Urdu language and not Bengali along with it. And that's how the Bengali movement started. And they also told me about Pakistan and so on. So I explained to them that you are all journalists and you should be objective. There are always two sides of a story. And I told them that I am a veteran, I'm older than you in age. And when I told them some of the facts, they became very close friends of mine. And we are still very close friends. But that is the time I realized that the truth must be told. And it must be dug up. And so many myths that have been created. And what better occasion than the 50th anniversary of the 1971 war, or as His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Bangladesh is here, the birth of Bangladesh. But yes, we acknowledge Bangladesh is a reality. It has thrived, and now it is even doing better than Pakistan, but we are proud of you. We are proud of your success. But still the truth must be told, because every few years the old wounds are raked, that Pakistan Army has to apologize, the people of Pakistan have to apologize. The truth must come out. And enough blood has been shed on both sides. I lost my own Pupi and 2 sons. And some of my relatives were brutally raped. But I'm willing to forget that. But that's my personal pain. The pain of Pakistan remains, and it will not be washed until we become friends again. We are ready to forgive and forget and move forward. There is no wall of Berlin that will come down. Bangladesh is an independent, sovereign country doing very well. But we need to have better relations. And between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, and incidentally, SAARC was the brainchild of President Ziaur Rahman, should be made effective and ensure that in the region, because the Bengalis are an emotional people, they always stand up for Kashmir, they stand up for the Rohingya Muslims, they stand up now for the Muslims who are being suppressed in India. So let us have a strong bond and a strong voice. That is what we owe to posterity and to our forefathers, some of whose pictures I flashed on the screen because Muslim League and the Pakistan movement was born on the streets of Dhaka. They were the forerunners of our freedom movement. The resolution on 1940, 23rd March was presented by none other than A.K. Fazlul Haq. But the sad part is that the depth of the tragedy, when you study more, you realize that it could have been avoided. At that time also, there were 3 sane voices: Lieutenant General Sahibzada Yaqub Khan, Admiral Ahsan, and Air Commodore Mitti Masood. they were in very important positions. They had their ears to the ground. And in March, they advised General Yahya not to carry out a military operation and to resolve this through talks, through negotiations, and so much blood could have been avoided. And mind you, none of these three were either spring chicken or they were afraid of war. Sahibzada Yaqub Khan had fought valiantly in the Second World War, was taken prisoner of war. Admiral Hassan had also seen the World War. He had served as ADC to Mountbatten. He had served as ADC to the Qaid. And Mitti Masood was the base commander as a group captain of PF base Sargoda, the mainstay of Pakistan Air Force in the 1965 war. He was Hilal-e-Jurrat. He was sent as air officer commanding to East Pakistan because of his courage, because of his knowledge, because of his strategy. And he had a session with, and all these three, they put their careers online by trying to advise. They were not pacifists, but they were realists. Unfortunately, their advice was ignored. The important thing is, and the sad part is, we keep blaming India. We keep blaming so-and-so. But we ourselves are our greatest enemies. The enemy will always exploit our weaknesses. Why are we ready for it to be exploited? One aspect I came out, I have not seen in other books, but it was startling for me, which I presented in my book, and whose picture was flashed a little earlier, was an ex-KGB agent, Yuri Bezmenov, who confesses that Bengali intellectuals were not only exploited to mold the opinion of the Bengalis. One of the allegations against Pakistan Army is that they killed the intellectuals on the 25th of March or somewhere close to that. But Yuri Bezmenov comes out with a very different story, and I tend to believe him because he was at the helm of affairs. That the intellectuals were used, and since they knew too much, they had to be eliminated. Now please fast forward. In our present circumstances, we are talking about hybrid warfare and about the enemy exploiting us, brainwashing us, and so on. Yuri Bezmenov and General Hassan is here, and so many other stalwarts on the army and armed forces. We are taught in the staff colleges and war colleges and the NDU the 4 steps which the enemy takes to subvert a country. First and foremost is poisoning the minds of the intellectuals, of the opinion builders, so that they lose their faith. The masses who are gullible listen to them, follow their path of chaos and mayhem. They lose faith in the government, in the armed forces, their capacity to defend the country, and then the country implodes from within. It happened 50 years ago, but it's happening even now. Are we ready to accept these lessons? Just look around, what's happening. I'm not going to take any names. I see Illuminati and literati sitting over here. Everybody understands what I'm trying to say. The social media invasion that came about and is still on, the important thing is how to fight it. We keep saying, why doesn't the government install software to stop this invasion? The minds of our youth, the minds of our gullible people. Everybody has a cell phone in their hands. Everybody is on Instagram and YouTube and whatnot. Why wait for the government? Why not take up the cudgels ourselves? Each one of us is responsible. Let us fight this menace ourselves. And we can do it. This is our country. This is our world. We have to make it safer. I was very impressed when Rajab Tayyip Erdogan, the Prime Minister, or now the President of Turkey, he introduced the Turkish history dramas, and he was asked why he's doing it. And his response is worth listening to. That as long as the lions do not write their own history, the hunters will continue to be labeled as heroes. There lies the lesson. So let me conclude by saying the way forward. I talked about Pak Bangla rapprochement. I talked about SARC. But let us move forward with peace and amity and forgive and forget the frenzy of madness that took precious lives, because life is too short to spend it amidst conflict. And our Bengali brothers and sisters, I know many of them now realize that it was a mistake, and most of us realize that we could have avoided it. There's no going back, but let's move forward with the message of friendship. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a distinguished panel of speakers with us today. We will start by playing a video message by Senator Javed Jabbar. Senator Javed Jabbar was elected to the Senate of Pakistan from 1985 to 1991. He served in 2 cabinets as federal minister and in 1 cabinet as Minister of State. Apart from that, Senator Javed Jabbar is a public intellectual with distinctive achievements in diverse fields. His work includes writing, filmmaking, media, voluntary service, education, environment, national and global affairs.
Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Thank you, Group Captain Sultan Mahmood Hali Sahab, for the privilege of inviting me to read the manuscript of your book before its publication, and for this gracious invitation to share some thoughts about the book to mark its publication. I regret my inability to be with you physically in Islamabad at the launch event due to unavoidable reasons. But I am confident that the other speakers and the other attendees of this event, all of them distinguished persons, citizens, and overseas visitors, if they are there, I'm sure they will make this deservedly a very successful event for a book and an author that certainly merit this attention and appreciation. The individual in question, the author, Group Captain Sultan Mahmood Hali, is a remarkable individual. He proves the thesis that life does not begin at 40, as it is said, nor does it begin at 50. It begins at 60. Because, mashallah, the prolific nature of his work, after retiring from the Air Force, which he served with great dedication and skill, after that, he begins this very prolific output of columns, of books, of writing songs, of travel, of writing and presenting a television program, looking at China, looking at defense and security issues. That truly marks a youthful mind, engaged in the world around him, with a very positive, constructive attitude, not surrendering to the idleness of retirement or self-indulgence, which some people do, but certainly, Group Captain Hali, you prove that every moment of life is worth living and celebrating. The title that Group Captain Hali has chosen for this book is so apt. Why should truth, but the question arises, why should truth be associated with torment? Truth is supposed to be beautiful, supreme, sublime, revealing everything. But as we know, truth is the most elusive, often the most elusive. And truth can be a source of great pain and suffering. The truth sometimes cannot be borne. And sometimes when the truth is twisted and distorted and suppressed, as it has been ever since 1971, truly Pakistan in particular, the nation, the citizens of Pakistan, human beings all, they have been tormented by the misrepresentation of what happened, why it happened, who did what, who bore responsibility, and the consequences thereafter. So the title for the book, Tormented Truth, 1971 and Beyond, I think is a very apt title for a book of this nature. 1971 will forever be a source of disturbing memory, of a perennial search for the truth. The truth doesn't end with the publication of this book, nor does it end next year. And that is the irony of history. History is a mystery. It's like archaeology. You keep digging and you keep discovering new perspectives, new data, as indeed is reflected in the content of this book. He has made a very sincere and extensively researched effort to add to the volumes of literature already available, written by some other also very able and dedicated authors, whether it is Mr. Hassan Zahir's book, The Separation of East Pakistan, whether it is Lieutenant General Kamal Matinuddin's book, A Tragedy of Errors, whether it is Ambassador Afra Siab's book, Facts and Fiction, Lieutenant General Hakim Arshad Qureshi, whether it is Siddiq Saleh, Rao Farman Ali, and even the person, so very controversial, Lieutenant General Niazi, The Betrayal of East Pakistan, and several more. To all of those existing volumes, written by Pakistanis and others who I have not named, this book is a welcome addition. And in hundreds of solid facts and details that he presents in this book. Group Captain Sultan Mahmud Hali, just to illustrate, I'll identify three which perhaps bear reflection. First, many of us, of course, in Pakistan used to doubt whether the charges of the Agartala conspiracy were really authentic. Many in West Pakistan doubted the authenticity. And yet, as it has been conclusively established, despite his otherwise perhaps quite sincere efforts to assert the just rights of Bengali East Pakistanis, unfortunately, Sheikh Mujib did interact with Indian authorities in a secretive manner. And the ultimate irony was that despite the solidity of the evidence, the charges were dropped and the case was withdrawn. And that is another fine example, the paradox of what you cannot do with the truth. Sometimes you retreat even though the truth is staring you in the face. People refuse to see that this is the truth. And I think he makes a valuable contribution by highlighting the fact that it was not only Lieutenant General Sahibzada Yaqub and Admiral Ehsan who spoke up candidly and advised General Yahya Khan not to consider military action. He remembers Air Commodore Zafar Masood, a relatively junior officer to a lieutenant general and an admiral, but a youthful person spends about an hour trying to present a very forceful, credible case to General Yahya Khan during his visit in March 1971, and hopes that he has convinced him not to take military action. Yet that hope is shattered because a week later or so, that military action commences. But this brave Air Commodore Zafar Masood, who is mostly unsung, unknown to many people, refused to deploy aircraft to bomb civil East Pakistanis who were agitating against military action or against the postponement of the National Assembly session originally. Then the third fact I want to share is perhaps something you already know, but he highlights that as the very last part of this book, which is the naming of Apara. Apara is more than a commercial market, as we know. Apara has become a synonym for the location of a very important institution of the Pakistan Army and the Armed Forces. But Apara was actually the name of the first baby born in government quarters in that part of Islamabad back in 1960. And when this miracle came, so in Apara remains Apara in Islamabad, but Apara and her parents migrated after 1971 to Bangladesh. That again is a paradox worth a little reflection. So, we look at so many chapters in the book, but chapter 7, which is called Bursting the Myths, and identifies 14 shibboleths that have accumulated in international discourse, I think is easily the most powerful chapter. My last 2 points. 1971, the creation of Bangladesh did not reject the reality of Muslim nationalism in South Asia. It rejected the original state structure of Pakistan, because even the Constitution of Bangladesh, Article 2A, says the state religion shall be Islam and then gives due respect to other religions. So the people of Bangladesh remain proudly Muslim and have no wish to be reintegrated with West Bengal or with India. We are now in the year 2021. And I'm glad that this book comes at a time when at least 2 other initiatives in media are taking place. One, a new cinema film, the first to be made in 2 years, called Khel Khel Mein, which premieres on 19th November, made by Fiza and Nabil, a very talented, gifted set of filmmakers. You have to see that to see how. And second, almost a 2-hour documentary, primarily for international audiences, produced by Evolution Media, Iram Shahid, who kindly invited me to be the executive producer and the writer of the narrative. Much more needs to be done, and I felicitate Group Captain Hali for contributing this valuable book. Thank you for your attention.
Our next speaker is Ambassador Salahuddin Chaudhry. Ambassador Chaudhry has been a career diplomat, having joined Pakistan Foreign Service in 1973 after briefly serving in Pakistan Air Force. In the Foreign Office, Ambassador Chaudhry had worked in various capacities on different political desks, including Americas, Europe, East Asia, India and Afghanistan, as well as in Quaid-e-Azam and Allama Iqbal Centenary Cell, as it said, for which he was awarded a Quaid-e-Azam medallion. Ambassador Chaudhry is a recipient of the title of Ambassador of Peace and Rotary Paul Harris Fellowship.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God Almighty, the most merciful, the most benevolent. आप सबको सुबह खैर, those who speak Bengali, Shuprabhat, and good morning. With an apology to you all, ladies and gentlemen, I must say, probably I have a little different opinion about a number of things. However, these are my personal, views. Nobody has to agree to. At the same time, I would request all of you to ponder over those points. In my abstract, at the outset, I wish to confide in you ladies and gentlemen, that as a matter of principle, since 1970, when I was PRO to the Air Chief of Staff, I had vowed not to talk politics. Just one moment, please. Something wrong with it. Okay. Some old colleagues of mine invited me to co-author a book on East Pakistan tobacco. And I said, no. As relevant to the content of this book, I would also confide that as a young man in 1972, just off to a creative job of PTV in Chaklala, when I sought the advice of my father, who was the Vice Chancellor of the first International Islamic University, he asked me to be brave and conscientious as a Pakistani, and as an adult to opt to stay on in Rawalpindi. This was my father's advice, as per my wish as well at that time. Yes, I am a proud Pakistani today. Tormenting as it was, he had some true personal stories to tell, which concerned misguided Hindu Bengalis and Hindustanis' uncanny perpetrations. Later, I had my sister also tell distressing stories that were tormenting. Mind the word, tormenting. That's why one of my reasons not to delve into politics, especially in the context of former East Pakistan. Surely, I avoided discussing political matters as they are mostly egoistic, controversial, and indeed painful. The book, my dear friend Sultan Mahmud Ali, the title of which I dare not repeat here as its narrative, closest to the truth, torments me apart. As irony would have it, the book is a result, I think, of really hard work, laborious research, and praiseworthy analysis. Hats off to Sultan Mahmud Hali, who did an undaunted and commendable search for truth from the annals of history, and who, in his dedication, into the page dedication, rightly said, "May sanity return to the subcontinent, and may the truth prevail." Excellent. That's the reality. Painful as it may still be, I would avoid talking about massacres of people, be it Bengalis or Biharis or non-Muslims. Of course, I felt the pangs and emotions of the author, having deep-rooted association as a young man with the Bengalis and East Pakistan. And the firmness as expressed in the preface of the book, are best prompted in his 9 years of relentless work with the book, where he does not mince words to pin a blame when felt it is due. Again, thank you, Sultan Hali. In human interaction and conflicts, undoubtedly to say so, it never is one hand that produces the clap or creates an incident. And more often than not, there are more than one cause or situation that reverberates and can lead to unwanted issues and armed conflicts. Like it or not, wars and conflicts decide political boundaries. True. The changing contours of modern conflict that includes hybrid war have transformed the battlefields in the world, including South Asia, which is one of the significant epicenters of instability in the globalized world. Sultan Hali's individualistic delineation and perspectives of Bengalis as emotional, highly politically conscious, and their overall psyche toward geo-economic issues based on ingrained holistic mindset are carefully dealt with in encapsulated form in the book's prologue of Bengali freedom movement and freedom fighters, and in the chapters of Bengali leaders in Pakistan movement. Culpability is another aspect of West Pakistan in the 1971 debacle and Bengali government in exile, led by an academician as well as Indian Machiavellian role in secession of East Pakistan. Plus, bursting the myths, the post-independence Bangladesh in a 25-year post-partition period before separation of East Pakistan was seen the sowing of the first seed of resistance, which was to Urdu as national language declared in 1948, turning it into a heightened crescendo of Bangla language movement that ultimately epitomized the so-called free Bangla concept of independent Bangladesh in 1971, 50 years ago. Now, exhaustive coverage has been given to military operation in East Pakistan called Operation Searchlight, and the Indian role in secession of the eastern wing of Pakistan, and the massacres of both innocent and partisan people, mainly targeting pro-Pakistan and Bengali and Bihari Muslims, and the Indian Army conspiracy. That's the key. The Indian Army conspiracy in bringing about the fall of Dhaka. Very sad. Hali has extensively drawn in references from well-known authors, military writers, essayists, and most importantly, Hamudur Rahman Commission report. Among unfortunate ingrained misgivings and misperceptions persisting in the eastern wing, resultant mistrust about majority rule would culminate in the breakup of Pakistan, as vehemently warned by many political leaders such as Nurul Amin and Mia Daulatana. But the ensuing blunders could not be plugged. That was unfortunate. Some journalists' rational analysis even quoted Mujibur Rahman and many of his compatriots who had maintained they never really wanted separation from West Pakistan. But regrettably, uncontrollable situations evolving became too compulsive to take hold of the ways to the penultimate outcome. Some may not agree. This is my personal view. With all respect to all the others, they hold different views. Maybe they are not different. It's very metaphoric, very philosophical that I'm trying to, delve into for your benefit. Now, truth does prevail in the end. But of course, people get traumatized and tormented when it takes too long in coming about and prevailing. S.M. Hali's book may be described to have made a difference, calling the truth somewhat to ensue as it provides an individualistic perspective of 1971, but hugely close to reality. Distinct, now I'll quote, distinct from the distorted narrative constructed by many over the past 50 years with hard facts. Senator Javed Jabbar, you just heard him, he was my very dear old friend, colleague in Pakistan television as well. Senator Javed Jabbar said in his book Cover Note about truthful narratives in the future amply shows his own thinking, which, however, may not necessarily be 100% revelation of things of the past, because most of you would see the logic, what is true to a people at one time of history may not be the same at another and another time. Yet, we the humanity feel happy, truth prevails. That is why I dare maintain, my respected speakers of the panel and ladies and gentlemen, truth and reality can also be a mirage and be misinterpreted. Nothing, metaphorically speaking, though, can ever be a gospel truth. In my epilogue, let me dwell on the Shakespeare's Hamlet. To be or not to be, that is the question, as held by the elderly father of a Pakistani colonel who was at the Mohammadpur Bihari camp. He had been living in since 1971 debacle. A part of the incredible cinematographic story done by a young man and a young team from Karachi. Javed Jabbar just mentioned. I had this already written, so I'm not going to change it. But I would like to highlight the feature film entitled Khel Khel Mein, that's the title, which is a must-watch for all of us. Tells us what it means to be humane. How wonderful it can be when you say forgive and forget. Just as Nelson Mandela, fighting apartheid for long 36 years in jail, told his people to do. Now, again, some people had given different opinion, but I agree to Nelson Mandela. And of course, I respect that. In both the countries are not subject to direct emotional upheavals as surmised in the film script. This I'm talking about the film. Nor should we elders, subject them to it unnecessarily. We don't have to remember the past. Of course, sometimes you can, to yourself in a room, in your study, ponder and think seriously. And it does help. The torment and torture you can overcome by thinking. Notwithstanding retrospective introspection into the 69-71 debacles and maladies, it is somewhat a necessity for all to see the painful truth. It is all the more necessary for fruitful living and progression to bury the bloody hatchet of the past and move forward, just like Javed Jabbar has said. Move forward and the future to make sense to us all toward peaceful and exponential coexistence through friendship, trust, and love. Just as during my assignment with the United Nations as a peacekeeper, I saw the Yugoslavs, some old friends of mine did confide, regretting and lamenting over the bloody civil war of the mid-90s and desperately trying since then to forget the past. Now, amply describing the author, S.M. Hali, as passionate in sifting events in search of truth, although there may always be exaggerated accounts. I'm not saying he did it, but it could be. The foreword of the book refers to a Bengali officer at a briefing in 1992, stating that Bengali officer stated in the briefing, all said and done, it is time to build bridges between Bangladesh and Pakistan. We owe it to the posterity. That Bengali officer at a young age said that in 1992. Let us see and wish no more individualistic narratives as carried in books or essays, controversial or factual, are required to get to light and torment us further. Let us simply be human to each other. Let's do a construct of trust to come together by zeroing in on despise and not looking down upon anyone. In recognition of the UN's World Day for Tolerance, that is today, 16th of November, let the peoples be tolerant and extend friendship and kindness as propounded on 13th November, UN Day called World Kindness Day. Let all of us today invest, just one more minute, invest our energy into important and more urgent matters such as climate action, as report of the COP26 UN Summit at Glasgow 1st to 11th of November, where I had the opportunity to give a talk online, highlighted the dangers of environmental degradation and the seriousness of global warming. Serious matter, even for Pakistan. Dear ladies and gentlemen, this is my last piece. Let's see that we have learned a lesson from the past. And yet, let us not allow the present and future to anymore be the tormentor for what had happened. Let the tormented truth, 1971 and beyond, of S.M. Hali serve to help folks from the past and present believe anew in the coveted truth and principle. Principle, what it is? Friendship for all, malice to none. Friendship for all, malice to none, be our mainstay policy. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Our next speaker is Air Vice Marshal retired Zubair Alam. Air Vice Marshal Zubair Alam was commissioned in GDP branch of Pakistan Air Force in January 1968. He is a graduate of National Defense University and recipient of Tamgha Basalat and Sitara Imtiaz Military. He is also a recipient of a foreign award, Nute Tadris, for his services to the government of Libya.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Chairman, Institute of Strategic Studies, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I am not a specialist in book reviews, nor do I intend to do that. But I have some inkling, as I was a member of a team who wrote the official history of the PAF by the name of Story of the PAF. So I'm aware of the painstaking effort required in ensuring extreme accuracy or truth behind each word. We had to match each bit of information from 3 different sources with that held with the PAF archives. Secondly, I took part in the war by flying 7 long-haul C-130 missions during November-December 1970 flood relief operations from West to East Pakistan. And later, from March to July 1971, I flew 60 air transport support missions, including 3 airfield assault and capture missions in East Pakistan. These operations provided vital logistic air links from Dhaka to Chittagong, Sylhet, Jessore, Ashurdi, Comilla, and Lal Manir Hut. Surface transportation was negligible because of Mukti Bahani infestation. The 3 airfield assault missions were successfully conducted to capture Lal Manir Hut on 3rd April, Sylhet on 8th April, and Ashurdi on 17th April. Surprise was achieved by landing close to first light, followed by troops storming out of the C-130 ramp and spanning outwards from the runway while capturing the airfield. At Lal Manir Hut, the runway was blocked with 3 tree trunks and branches, so a group of soldiers were dropped by helicopter to clear the runway first. From same airfield, our C-130 was surrounded by huge crowds of West Pakistanis trying to board the aircraft. We picked up over 300 in a plane with 95 seats only, including old mothers with babies. Some fainted due to overcrowding and were revived by using portable oxygen bottles. The return flights to Dhaka were normally filled with such victims and injured. From one airfield, we picked up 8 Pathans whose throats had been cut halfway. The local doctor had put a plastic beaker in the food pipe to administer water and medicine. They were old settlers as moneylenders in that area. I have read Group Captain Hali's book, Tormented Truth, 1971 and beyond. In my opinion, the title of the book says it all. The author has carefully built the case by quoting impartially from other sources reporting on the 1971 tragedy. He has tactfully avoided to describe the gruesome details of atrocities committed by the Mukti Bahani in Chittagong and elsewhere. I had visited some of these sites and saw telltale signs of blood-covered floors and walls of the hall where West Pakistani female students were raped and slaughtered. What they did with the bodies of the victims cannot be described in a public forum. The dictionary defines man as a social animal. During war, men do behave as animals on both sides. The personal security starts to revolve around the paradigm to kill the enemy or get killed. It's as simple as that. Captain Hali has covered all aspects of the separation of East Pakistan. The grievances of the majority are genuine. And sooner or later, in my opinion, they would have parted ways. It could have been done amicably through a democratic parliament. The author's desire of burying the past and moving forward requires great motivation and some sort of fact-finding process by a neutral commission to at least honor the lives of lost on both sides. That is very important. We must honor all those who died in this war on both sides. In the end, I would like to quote Hali, "ये निस सदी की ये निस सदी का किस्सा है, 2-4 बरस की बात नहीं. Thank you very much, Hali, for your effort, and I appreciate Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, for holding this event. Thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the chief guest for today's event is former Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, General Ehsanul Haq. His 4 decades of military service included assignments as the Director General Inter-Services Intelligence, Director General Military Intelligence, and the Corps Commander in Peshawar. His international assignments include an instructional tenure with the Iranian Armed Forces and a command tenure with the Saudi Armed Forces. He has also attended an executive management course with the U.S. Army in Richmond, Virginia. In recognition of his meritorious services, he has been awarded Hilal-e-Imtiaz Military and Nishan-e-Imtiaz Military. He is also a recipient of Knight of the Legion of Honor from the French government and King Abdul Aziz Medal of Excellence from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It is with great honor that I now invite the chief guest, General Ehsanul Haq, for his address.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ambassador Azaz Chaudhry Sahab, Ambassador Salauddin Chaudhry Sahab, a lot of Chaudhrys under the roof, Air Marshal Zubair Sahab, Dr. Brigadier Saif, Group Captain Hali and Begum Hali, distinguished guests, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon. I'll also like to acknowledge the presence of my fellow Sargodians, and as very rightly pointed out, it's an important day for the Sargodians because the author is a Sargodian, I am a Sargodian, Azaz Chaudhry Sahab, who is our host, is a Sargodian, and so many Sargodians have turned up to be a part of these proceedings. Now, for those of you who are not Sargodians, and there are many under the roof, let me explain to you something, why it's so important for the Sargodians. In the united Pakistan, when Bangladesh was a part of Pakistan, Sargodha was only one of the 2 institutions, I don't know, I can be corrected if there was any other institutions, which had students from both wings of the country. All other institutions were their I would say their students and faculty also was from either of the one wings. Either they were from East Pakistan or they were from West Pakistan. It was PF Sargodha and its sister institution PF Lower Topa, which was based on an all-Pakistan selection process on merit. So at any one time, we had about half the students of Sargodha who were from East Pakistan and the other half were from West Pakistan. So that was a very rare distinction for the institution. And the impact was that when East Pakistan separated in 1971, there were a number of ex-Sargodians who were serving in the armed forces of Pakistan. And I recall Fazlur Rahman, Fury House, who was a couple of entries my junior. He was a course mate of Air Chief Marshal Tanveer, 14th entry. How he came running to me. We were in Multan, and he was crying about what had happened. It was not a feeling of those of us on the left, on the west side. This was the feeling of those of us, particularly the Sargodian lot, which were going to be part of Bangladesh. And let me build on this Sargodian thing, because subsequently, when we decided, and I had the honor to be the president of the Old Boys for I think 13 years I could count, but maybe it was more. And when on our Golden Jubilee we decided that we will replicate the spirit of Sargodha by setting up Sargodian Spirit Trust institutes all over the countries, we also decided that one of those institutions will be in Dhaka. And the President of Pakistan, then General Pervez Musharraf, who was present there, sitting next to me and Farooq Feroz Bhai, Air Chief Marshal Farooq Feroz. And he turned around and he said, and there were a large number of visitors from East Pakistan, including then Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who was honored guest sitting next to me, being a Sargodian. And the President said that we will give an equal amount for setting up this institution in Dhaka as is given by the government of Bangladesh. That if the government of Bangladesh gives 100 rupees, we will equal that. So that commitment still stands, and we hope we can realize that some point in time. So I wanted to tell you why the Sargodians are here in strength and why we take so much of pride in this fact that the Hali has done this to write about it. By the way, Hali, you are getting into the habit of writing books. And you're putting me, Hali, I hope you heard me. I said, you are getting into the habit of writing books and you are getting into the habit of asking me. This is the third one on which I am the chief guest. It's a great privilege. And I'm so happy you decided to write this book about the tormented truth because of your background. It's very special. And I could feel the depth of your emotions as you shared with us why and how you went about writing this book. So I consider it a privilege to have been invited to the launching on this well-timed and, let me say, meticulously researched book. And we keep calling you Hali, but I was very happy when Javed Jabbar Saab and subsequently Salahuddin Chaudhary Bhai was calling you Sultan Mahmud Hali. Such a beautiful name you have, and we keep calling you Hali. I don't know why. We are stuck with that Hali from old days. This is indeed another brilliant effort. I know I was here about the book you wrote on China, and I was here when the book you wrote on Hindutva. But I must say, this is a very brilliant effort. I've gone over your book. And it is on a rather sensitive subject. It is never easy to be objective on a subject relating to national failure and defeat. It's very easy to, Hindutva would have been easier. China would have been even pleasanter. But to write on 1971, I can understand the trauma through which you have been constantly going for this last year and plus. It is even more challenging in the case of 1971, as it led to the dismemberment of our homeland and have bolstered the perennial Indian existential threat to Pakistan. And it continues till this day. So when you talk about it, it didn't end in 71, it continues today. Despite the passionate polarization and raw emotions related to various aspects of the subject, you have tackled them with admirable skill on the basis of evidence and cogent reasoning. This is a strong reaffirmation of your intellectual competence and mettle. It gives me immense joy and some pride to see eminent Sargodians become authors and writers. Azaz Chaudhry gave me his book the last time I was here 2 weeks back, and now I'm here for your books. So the Sargodians are getting into the habit of writing books, and I am going to very soon request you, Hali, and Azaz Chaudhry to please help me write a book, because I am under enormous pressure from all over that I must write down my memoirs or my experiences or my exposures to, and I have been through difficult times. So I'll seek your help and guidance. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall not dwell too much on the book, because I can never match what Javed Jabbar Sahab, the way he has gone into it and the way Salahuddin Chaudhry has done it, and thereafter the direct experiences of Air Vice Marshal Zubair, my senior in the PF Academy, Risalpo. I will only dwell on one or two points. It is the most readable and knowledgeable write-up, Hali, that you have put on, and I would request and recommend you must read it. I can assure you, Hali, I am going to hand it over to my grandson, Ali, who is what they call a history geek, American-born and brought up there, and who frequently questions me about 1971. Anytime I talk about Afghanistan and the American withdrawal from Bagram, and he reminds me of 1971. So I am going to give him this as particularly the myth busters that you have, put in there. He is going to sit down with me and this copy, and I will make sure he reads it, so that this is something which must be passed on. Because we have, and I'll come to that, we have been through a lot of disinformation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the age of narratology. Narratives work. Narratives form the basis of defense policies. Narratives are a key element in the higher directions of wars and policies. And narrative are the basis of what we call hybrid wars. So in this age of narratology, we have to tell our story and keep telling it repeatedly. Unfortunately, it was not just the war in 1971. The war came at the end of a narrative that was built against Pakistan, against the people of Pakistan, and that included the people of then East Pakistan. And that narrative has been made sure by our detractors and by our enemies that narrative should continue to be in the air and shoved down our throats, that this is why it happened. So I'm so glad that you have, through scholarly logic, given us a counter narrative, reinforced our counter narrative. And particularly by addressing the myths that have been structured. Some of these myths have been so powerful, as I told you, that it is going down to our grandchildren. And they believe that this is true. So we will have to keep reinforcing this myth, removal of this myth and this counter narrative, to try and provide logical facts to reinforce our counter narrative. Ladies and gentlemen, the East Pakistan catastrophe resulted from the cumulative failure of the country, that was Pakistan, in political, diplomatic, and the military fields. While Pakistan was dismembered in December 1971, the seeds of separation were planted soon after the dawn of independence. East Pakistanis nurtured political grievances since 1947, which needed sympathetic consideration and political accommodation. Instead, and this is a trait with us, what I'm going to say now, this sentence. Instead, successive governments avoided taking difficult decisions and hoped that somehow time will mellow down regional and ethnic sensitivities. We keep doing this till this day. We hope that by ignoring the problem will go away one day. We don't do anything about it. And this is why I said this is something which is ingrained into our thinking, into our, our approach to life. The result was that the opposite happened, giving India the opportunity to meddle and realize its long-cherished dream to divide Pakistan. As I said, it was a political, diplomatic, and military failure. But I must say, it was also the failure of the people of Pakistan, be it in East Pakistan or in West. We keep saying, no, it's the leadership. No. Why? The people of Pakistan had an opportunity only 1 year before that. In December 1917, I remember as a lieutenant, I had to go out to conduct those famous 1970 elections. They had the opportunity to see through the designs of the leadership. And they should have corrected. Because we say ultimately, the ultimate wisdom is of the people. That wisdom of the people didn't come into play, whether it was in East Pakistan or whether it was in West Pakistan. It should have defanged the ambitions, the raw personal ambitions of the leadership at that time. Whether it was Mujibur Rahman there or whether it was Bhutto here, it did not happen. So merely putting it on leadership or leadership at that time, I think is somewhat unfair because, as I said, it started from 1947. It continued, all leaders, and those leaders were not only leaders from West Pakistan. You had very, very eminent personalities, Khwaja Nazimuddin, Hussain Shahid Sarwardi, and many others who were in those positions who could have applied corrections way earlier. It did not happen. Fine, the villains for us are General Yahya, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, but frankly speaking, the slide was on from 1947. And as Zubair Saab said earlier, it would have happened. Why would it have happened? It would have happened because of the physical distances. Despite all these problems and issues, if there wasn't such a big physical distance between East and the West wings, whatever India would have tried would not have succeeded. It could only succeed because 1,000 miles, and that 1,000 mile was Indian territory. It wasn't even neutral territory that we could say, no, fine. So this is something which is very important to understand for our present and our future generations. But the saving grace in that is, please remember, after 1971, you would recall when the then Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi claimed the sinking of the two-nation theory. They did not succeed in that. The two-nation theory never sank. What is Bangladesh? It's one of the biggest Muslim countries. It would have sunk if Bangladesh had been absorbed into India. Now, why I'm saying this is because this will set the direction of the future between the two countries and the two people who have a common history, and it's now up to them to evolve a common vision and a common future. Pakistan's failure to strengthen its political institutions and our political dissensions were an invitation for disaster. So this was one aspect I thought I will highlight. The second thing that I wanted to focus on in the context of present-day Pakistan is what I describe as the Bangladesh syndrome. What has happened is that since 1971, since we were so traumatized, we could never imagine, because whatever may have been the grievances of our brothers in then East Pakistan, we never thought it would lead to such a traumatic separation. It was unthinkable for us. So that trauma continues, and that it is reflected in our politics, in our security policies, in our day-to-day living. You see it in our media every day. If somebody says something against the government in power, oh my God. At the back of our mind is Bangladesh. At the back of our mind is 1971. Is Balochistan going to separate? Is Sindh going to separate? Is the KP going to separate? Is there going to be another Mukti Bahini? Are the Indians going to succeed one more time? Frankly speaking, we have to get out of this Bangladesh syndrome. As I told you, despite all Indian machinations, it would not have happened but for that physical distance of 1,000 miles. If that had not been there, regardless of anything, they would not have succeeded. So those circumstances no more exist in West Pakistan. And I am intentionally focusing on this Bangladesh syndrome. We have to come out of this for the future of a strong Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, Hali has done a great thing by his objective analysis of the events leading to the debacle. But in my view, it is not enough. I feel the 50 years anniversary of 1971 should be an occasion for introspection. The important thing is, what introspection? How much have you progressed since the late 60s and the eve of 1971? How much have we progressed in terms of our national identity and nation building? our political stability and rule of law, our ethnic divisions and provincial disharmony, our issues of governance, the issues of extremism and sectarianism, internal security and our internal fault lines. Are they still there? If they are still there, then I'm afraid there's something seriously wrong. We need to look at that. Of course, then there are issues of our economic security, energy and food security, water security. Now, how much have we had a look at the Hamudur Rahman Commission report and see what are its recommendations? How have we implemented those recommendations? Which one we didn't implement? There was a good reason at that time, immediately after 1971, to not go into various measures, because the slogan that Zulfikar Ali Bhutto as the Prime Minister gave was, and it's very common now, was Naya Pakistan. He said, we are going to have a new Pakistan. You keep hearing Naya Pakistan now also. So it made sense to focus on nation building, national morale, reviving and going on a new path, on a new trajectory. But we shouldn't forget the Hamudur Rahman Commission report. We shouldn't forget the lessons that we have learned or the lessons that were highlighted. It's very important that we keep those in mind and keep ticking what we do and keep reminding ourselves what we have not done. I mean, our political or security policies must be looked at. Even our higher direction of war must be looked at. How we are going to conduct or direct our future wars. Those are very important things. Those are lessons that we learned the hard way. And if we still decide to dump them or keep them in our lockers, then I am afraid Hali's effort and the efforts of many other authors and intellectuals who keep reminding of this huge, huge debacle in our history would have gone waste. Hali, you did a very important thing in that book, and that was to remind me about Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. And I'm so happy you did that. And those of you who read the book must please read. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad, for the younger ones, was the president of the Indian National Congress. And he wrote a book. Earlier he had been expressing these thoughts, but then he wrote it down as a book. And the name of the book was The Man Who Knew the Future of Pakistan Before It Became Independent. Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. He knew about the future of Pakistan before it became independent. He wrote this, that this is what Pakistan will ultimately end up being. And it's very important. I'll just read 3-4 lines. Kitab unne likhi. The book was on Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. It was written, I think it was an interview initially to Shoresh Kashmiri, and then subsequently it came out as a book by. But interesting thing was, and it's very important for, when I talked earlier of introspection, I'm only mentioning this by way of the introspection. He said, and it's somebody who was the most rabid enemy of the Qaid and one of the most rabid enemy for the creation of an independent Islamic Pakistan. But he wrote, but he was a Muslim. He was the poster boy of the Indian National Congress's claim to being an inclusive polity, secularism. He was their poster boy. They would put him up front. And he said, incompetent, he's talking about the future Pakistan, incompetent political leadership will pave way for military dictatorships like other Muslim countries. There will be a heavy burden of foreign debts, and there will be unfriendly neighbors and armed conflicts. and there will be internal unrest. And he goes on, and there will be loot of national wealth by the new rich and the industrialists. And there will be dissatisfaction of youth with religion and the ideology of Pakistan. And there will be international conspiracies to control Pakistan. Now, why did I say that? Why have I included this? Specifically, that we have to prove these enemies of Pakistan wrong. Unless we can do that, we will not be able to aspire for a strong, prosperous future for Pakistan. Ladies and gentlemen, great nations always remember history and honor their heroes. And I'm glad Hali has done that in highlighting some of these people. Although very interestingly, when you say that General Sabzada Yaqub Khan and Admiral Hassan and was he Air Commodore or Group Masood, they told General Yahya, they spent hours explaining to General Yahya that there should be no military operation. The most interesting insight is that General Yahya agreed with them. He said, yes, I absolutely agree with what you are saying. But then there is a dynamic of an environment which ultimately, it strategically sucks you into a situation which you cannot move out of. And that had happened way before their meetings in Dhaka to discuss whether there should be a military operation or not. So that is what the study of history, the study of higher direction of war, the inclusive working of politico-security policies demand. And if you do that correctly, then you won't end up that situation when you all think they shouldn't have a military operation and you still will get into a military operation. That is an important lesson from that. Now, with regards to the future relations between Pakistan and Bangladesh, I entirely agree with you, your Hali, your sentiments. That's very important. But there are 2-3 things. We have to have our feet firm on ground. First of all, we don't want this periodic racking up of emotional issues. And on that, there has to be reciprocity. It cannot be one-sided. We cannot wish it and it will happen. Unless it is reciprocated, I am afraid. And that is where, there are challenges that we have faced. I remember when we got even the Sargodians into Sargoda one time, and I remember one of the more emotional of our Sargodians, he got up and he said, sir, we will forgive, but we will not forget. And I thought that was ridiculous. I mean, what are you trying to say? But since I was the host, I had to go along. I said, fine, let's do 50%. Let's first do forgive and later on we talk about forgetting. You see, you have to come out of victimhood. This is the important message that comes out of Hali's book, that it was not one side which was a victim. We were collectively as a nation a victim of something that had happened to us. And that entailed people from West Pakistan and that entailed people from East Pakistan. So for one side to claim victimhood, I am afraid, will not, because it creates, then it is that same thing of doing 50%. I'll forgive, but I'll not forget. What the hell are you talking about? I mean, for God's sake. And in my view, it requires, there are strong bonds, there are strong feelings amongst the people. I have my own group of my class fellows of 1965 in Sargoda, our class was senior Cambridge of 1965, and of course there are half of them are from Bangladesh and half of them are from here, and we keep exchanging all sorts of funny things and what all. And I know what are the emotions. And I very much also look forward to meeting Hilaluddin sitting somewhere and, so many of them. But the fact is, it requires statesmanship. Do we have that? I still find people politicians on both sides taking political advantages of what are the situation, what are the issues, what are the emotions. I think we'll only be able to move forward if our leadership was to display statesmanship. And I am very hopeful of that. Once again, Hali, thank you for the great job done. Choi Saab, thank you very much for this excellent event. And it's indeed a pleasure to meet you all, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly my Sargodian fraternity. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
May I now request the chief guest, speakers, and ISC team to please come forward to have a group photo.